everybody. It's Monday, July 18th, and that means it's time for another episode of Nonprofit Conversations. I'm your host, Cecilia Sepp. I'm the principal and founder of Road Tulips Consulting, and thanks for joining us for this episode. To our global audience, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Today, we're really excited. We have, continuing our 2022 trend of first-time guests, we have Renata Pozza of MCI Brazil, which is an international association management company. And today's topic is creating strategies for nonprofit engagement. Welcome, Renata. Would you like to say hello to our audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Hello, Cecilia. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. So I've been working with no-profit association my whole career. I'm very focused on Congress at the beginning. Then I move into management and a strategic approach, developing a strategy for engagement with all stakeholders, say members, sponsors, government, university. And my experience growth in national market in Brazil and also with supporting international clients growing in Latin America in different fields, from medicine to cybersecurity, from accounting to retail. So I have a chance to navigate in different areas. It was really great. And each area has very specific ways of engagement.
You know, that is a great background to have. It sounds sort of similar to mine. And that's one of the reasons I love nonprofit management is you get to do a lot of different things over your career. So Renata, you have a different perspective working outside the United States in this area. So I'd like to start off talking with you about what do you think is the greatest challenge to creating that nonprofit engagement?
Well, I can tell you, based on my experience in Latin America, here the greatest challenge, I may say, that is the culture. We don't have this natural culture of being engaged with no-profit causes or organizations as used to have in US. At least I have this feeling that US have this is part of culture since the little ones starting to engage with some no-profits or some causes. So when we came to Latin America, it's not part of our culture. So the organizations here must really have a very clear value proposition with defining very clearly what benefits you have to offer to the members so you can engage it easily. I may say that that's why the professional associations are stronger here because they are very clear on the benefits to offer to the members. And I may say that second point I can highlight is that the Latin American associations are very focused in only delivering an annual meeting and not really looking for or putting some efforts in other things like content, continuing education, or certification. So there's a lot of space to grow and get engaged in these other areas as well.
So that's really interesting. So the organizations in Latin America tend to focus more on the big annual conference and bringing everyone together.
Yes, definitely. And we have a lot of strong Congress here, especially in Brazil, like a very huge Congress. But when you look for the portfolio of other educations during the all along the year, you don't find a lot of things as you have in US. So online content for on-demand content or other opportunities of networking, that things that are so important to keep your members engaged all over the year are not so well developed yet. I may say that the associations here had a chance to open their mind in a couple of years since the pandemic when everything came online and they say, wow, now I don't have my annual meeting. What can I do? How can I create something else to add value to my members? So they started to open their minds and see that it's necessary really to have a chance to offer something different for the new generation, new way of delivering some content or to create network opportunities. So I might say that's a process that is beginning. So we have a lot of space to work on it yet.
Well, so I really love that you're looking at this as an opportunity in between annual conferences to expand into more networking opportunities and to expand into developing content for people. So what sort of networking opportunities might people in Latin America be interested in?
So I think I can share some examples. We used to manage here association of blockchain. It's a blockchain hub in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
It is based on educational platform, lives, congress, and also networking. And we used to have every 3 months a special network that is called Block Beer and Ribs. So it's a lot of beer, barbecue, and networking, of course. we get members that are really working on blockchain day by day, and they get together to have a chance to chat, to develop new products, to understand the new research they are doing. And this is great because it's an important chance to be together. And this in Latin America is very important to really have a face-to-face changing, to know each other, to develop something, to create this relationship, to make it strong. So it's a kind of strategy that used to work here.
Well, and I know in the United States, we also really value that opportunity to see each other in person, to shake hands, or maybe even give each other a hug. I'm sure there will be lots of hugs at all the in-person conferences this year, because many people haven't had one, at least in the States, since 2019. There were a few groups that did during the latter half of the pandemic lockdown. But so with the groups that you work with, so when they're getting together and they're networking, what is the groups you work with when they're looking for networking opportunities? Are they looking to build business, find new clients, share knowledge, or maybe find a new job?
Say a little bit of all of these options, but definitely to have a chance to exchange some ideas, have a chance to understand what is going on in some different projects, what is being developed, what are the new opportunities in the market.
And you also, and that's actually very similar, I think, to what all people are looking for with networking. But I also like to ask, when we're talking about different countries, because of course, different cultures, as you've pointed out, maybe people are more focused on that annual conference for education, as opposed to seeing everybody in between. I also want to go back to something you said earlier that I thought was really important, because I like to dig into that a little bit. You said you feel, from what you've seen, that the professional organizations are stronger where you are because they have a more clearly defined value proposition. So how do you see that value proposition being defined so that maybe our U.S. audience can learn from that?
Wow. There's so many different professional associations. And when you came for professional or trade associations, we have different point of views. But I may say that the professional ones used to focus a lot of offering education. So they clearly goes and say, here is the Congress I can offer and courses or a certification. So it's clear. I have to pay annually, but I will have in exchange a certification program or educational program. So it's clearly based on content and education. When you go to trade associations, I think that's not really so easy to make the value proposition so clear, because they work with advocacy. And advocacy sometimes it's much more behind the scene. So it's hard to make clear, well, this is what I got. This is the advocacy I've made, because there's a lot of work on behind the scene. So that's my point of view. Like it's this different approach for each kind of association.
Yeah, it is so interesting, Renata, because it's almost opposite in the United States, because here advocacy for trade associations is the number one offer. And it's very clear, and they know that, and it's well publicized to the membership. And I think where they tend to have a fuzzier value proposition is anything outside advocacy. So like, what are you doing for our company outside of advocacy work, like talking to the federal government? And then professional organizations, or like I call them professional societies for individuals, they tend to be, I think, clearer on certain things like education, and they tend to get fuzzier in some of those other areas, like the vagueness of networking, for example. So I think your points on the value proposition, though, are really good to consider. So in your opinion, what do you think are like a couple of points you should always make when you're discussing the value of membership?
You must make clear how you are adding value in their career, from education or from advocacy, or make it clear. So I can say we're talking about advocacy, but I want to bring a different point. Social media. Social media here is a very important channel, and to create the engagement in the platform, we had some great experience when the association take a position in every important matter. So this is really what the audience expected. And there is a community that we manage here in Women in IT. And of course, it's based in a cause. We are not offering content or really advocacy, but we are supporting young ladies to get in the IT market, to have much more women than we have today. That is a huge difference between women and men. And our audience is really young, and they are really engaged with feminism. They love memes, for example, and they really expected us to take a position in front of what it's really matter. We had a political issue a few months ago when a congressman said some foolishness about women, and we did a very strong post against it. And this post was record of engagement. And when we bring this for professional associations, for example, we have a lot of issues here regarding the COVID vaccination. And I know in US, you also face the same issue. And I do understand that the medical societies must take a position on that. That's what their audience expected them. So this kind of value we offer to our members, make sure it's part of what the audience is expecting.
That is so similar to what we do in the United States. And I was thinking when you shared the example of a member of Congress making a
Mhm.
statement, a silly statement about that. I was thinking, well, that's a universal constant, isn't it? Members of Congress making silly statements. But it is important, bringing it back to that topic. It is important that professional associations and trade associations represent that voice of that segment of our societies and our communities, because we need to have someone to point these things out. Now, we can sit here and laugh about, oh, well, this member of Congress made a silly statement, but maybe they made that silly statement because they didn't know. They didn't know any better. They didn't have the right information. And
Mhm.
educating the stakeholders and the decision makers is a vital role, I think. And I did want to ask you another question. You were with MCI Brazil.
Mhm.
You have talked a little bit about Latin America as a community, but I do know Brazil is a country that is about the same size as the United States, and
Mhm.
most likely has a lot of different regions, like the United States. And so, do you see that come in to play when you're working with groups? Because, for example, one part of the country might have a different attitude than another part of the country. Like here, so like out west, people tend to be considered a little more independent and individual, as opposed to the East Coast, we tend to be more working in groups. So do you see that sort of thing in Brazil as well?
Totally, Cecilia. It's the same. It's a huge country, so we have different realities in each area. Not only in this cultural aspect that you highlighted, but also in the technology available in the country or the number of professionals available in that region. It makes all the difference when we talk about engineer, for example, or medicine. So it's important to the associations trying to have a local voice in every state and trying to adapt it to the local reality. So this is part of the association mission to take the content to every area. And of course, like Brazil, we have a South more developed. So when we host a Congress in São Paulo, for example, we were going to have much more people attending than if I go to Northeast in some capital in Amazonia, for example. And it's because we have much more professional from every field in São Paulo. But when you go to Amazon, for example, you must take some congress there once in a while, because the people, the profession that are over there needs to have this opportunity as well. But it's hard to get the same amount of sponsorship because it's quite expensive for the companies go through there to invest in money. And we know the number of attendants is going to be low. So why don't you create some small summits that go through different regions, but you keep attending all the regions? So this is part of the strategy the National Association must have.
So you were just talking about how you make a point of serving the less populated parts of the country, like in Amazonia, and in bringing them the unique services, like maybe a smaller summit. And I think that is a great lesson for all of us. And I think that is our sign across the board in what is now what I consider the global nonprofit community, as it continues to grow outside the United States, of us learning from each other and also making sure that the people we're working with are getting what they need in ways that work for them. Because as you mentioned, sponsorships are so important to making sure these meetings happen, that people can go, because sometimes you can set up a scholarship or something like that, or help defray some travel cost for the attendees so that they can get what they need and participate. So as we're already nearing the end of our episode. I can't believe it, because this has been a great conversation. But I did want to ask you, one of the areas that's kind of a big area in the United States is having local chapters And
Mhm.
so I'm curious, do you do that as well in Brazil? Do you have chapters?
A lot. We call it state chapters, like based on Brazil is separate by state, that's US.
Mhm.
And we have the biggest association used to have the chapters in every, at least region or the main states, to have this local support. It's necessary.
Well, that's great because I used to be a chapter relations professional before
Mhm.
I got into consulting. And I think we're all still CRPs at heart, no matter where we end up going in our career. And I think that having that chapter element really increases the value of being involved, no matter where the community is, and because it can
Mhm.
adapt and have its own personality. And do you find that as well? Like when I've worked with chapters around the United States, I'll have a really different personality. Do you see that as well?
Yes, it's important because you give voice to your members. You give a chance for someone that are from every state be engaged, and they understand local culture. They are part of the national association, but they bring the local values. They are, it's much easier for a chapter get the local members and put this local the local flavor and understand the needs of each area. And it's important because not only the board of directors that sometimes like 5 or 6 positions you open, and you give voice for your members as well from different areas.
Oh, that's great. And when you said flavor, that's exactly the word I was thinking. That's wonderful. So Renata, we're at the end of our episode, and we always like to ask our guest, or I should say obviously to our audience, I am still used to working with Agnes, which is why I say we. So we miss you, Agnes. So I like to ask our guests. Okay, we'll just stick with we. Okay. We like to ask our guests, what is the one thought you would like the audience to take away today from our conversation? And if they wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about, how things are done in your area, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, my piece of advice will be always take a position on important causes. Your audience must see your organization as a strong leader to defend your interest. So definitely take a position. And it will be a pleasure if anyone wants to get in contact with me. My LinkedIn is Renata-Pozza. So it will be a pleasure if someone wants to keep engaging.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Renata, for joining us. And I hope you'll come back and we can continue the discussion on engagement.
Thank you.
Well, we have to go rogue for now. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode of Nonprofit Conversations. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box, check us out online, roguetulips.com. If you are interested in getting some education to either earn the CAE education or maintain your CAE, you can learn more about our education program, the 501c League, at its website, the501cleague.net. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.